Shalom, brothers and sisters. Praise Yah. Baruch are all who revere Yahuwah and walk in his ways. Today I want to share with you a little bit about generational curses, and I'm going to start out by letting you know I am not an expert. I just want to share some things with you because I know the life that I'm living, I'm striving to live for Yah. I am so grateful to be in his family. And so I just want to share with you some things you may already know, but I'm going to share what I know, which is not a whole lot, but enough. So generational curses and familiar spirits are working in lives, and they're not even aware that that's what's going on. Some people don't understand why they keep doing the things they're doing, saying the things they're saying, going the places they're going to, and choosing the people that they choose to mate with. And we really do need to know who we are mating with. So mating is different than dating, even though nowadays dating is mating because they feel like they can't end a date without mating, which is so sad. Because women need to understand that every time that they mate with a man, his DNA is in that sperm that he releases, and in his sperm, in the DNA that's in the blood, is who he is. And so they don't realize that they are encountering all types of spirits. And even the man, he also too is encountering different spirits. And he ought not to be touching somebody else's wife, because if it's not his wife, she's going to probably be someone else's wife. And he's already tainted her and touched her. So he has no right to be doing that. But our boys often are not taught that they ought to preserve themselves also for marriage, which is very, very sad. And it can happen in a family where a family might have sons and daughters, and the daughters have to be chaste, and the boy, it's okay for him to go out there. But there's generational spirits, curses with familiar spirits, and they work hand in hand. The curses are covenants that were made with ancestors, whether they were ignorantly made or knowingly made. And those spirits look for a place, a host. Hanak, said that the fallen angels are in reserve. They're in chains. And Peter talked about it too, and I think maybe Jude. But Hanak was told to tell so what happened was the fallen angels came to him wanting him to petition the Father. They didn't like their state, and they wanted to go back to their former state. And of course that was not going to happen. And so the message that Hanak was given was to tell them that they will be in chains, but their descendants, the offsprings of the relationship that the fallen angels had with women, the daughters of Cain, they would be on the earth, the evil spirits. They would be called evil spirits. And so even though Father destroyed the earth with the flood, and everyone was killed except for the 7 that were in the ark. I'm sorry, the 8 that were in the ark. Those spirits were out there lurking, waiting for civilization to start back again. So when we look at the definition of familiar, I went to the freedictionary.com website, and there were 6 definitions. Number 1, often encountered or seen. This is the word familiar. Having fair knowledge, acquainted. 3, of established friendship, intimate. 4, natural and unstudied, informal. 5, taking undue liberties. Oh my. 6 is familia. Now, familia is a noun. As a noun, is considered a close friend or an associate. When you see it as an adjective, it means that it is of or relating to a family, 2, occurring or tending to occur among members of a family. Tending to occur. What sounds like some activity, right? Usually by heredity or familiar trace of familial disease. So we have evil spirits on the earth, and they're looking for a place to stay. So when we read Luke 11 and 20, starting with verse 21, Yahushua is speaking, and he says, when a strong man armed keeps his palace, his goods are in peace. But when a stronger than he shall come upon him and overcome him, he takes from him all his armor, wherein he trusted, and divides his spoils. Verse 24, when the unclean spirit is gone out of a man, he walks through dry places seeking rest, and finding none, he saith, I will return into my house whence I came out. And when he comes, he finds it swept and garnished. Then he goes and takes to himself 7 other spirits more wicked than himself, and they enter in and dwell there. And the last state of that man is worse than the first. And that's pretty much what Hanak was telling us in the book of Hanak, that those spirits are on the earth. So when you think about who our first teachers are, the first people we come to know is our family members, right? And so they're influencing us and modeling and mentoring us from our youth. And with them doing that, they are opening doors to those spirits who are seeking a host. And so it's no wonder why people act like they act, and familiar spirits. So we are told by Yahushua that we can bind and loose. It's part of the keys of the kingdom that the Father had given us, and yet we don't do that. No one really teaches it. Well, I should say they don't teach it much. I have not heard it in years, decades, anyone teaching about us having the ability to bind and loose. Whatever we bind on earth is going to be loosed in the Shemayim, in the heavens. Whatever we loose on earth is being loosed in the Shemayims. Okay? And so just like the scriptures say that anything that 2 or 3 touch on, any matter that they touch on here on earth, right, they're in agreement, then it'll be done for them in Yahushua's name. So we have that power to do those things, but we're not taught it. And we who know it, we don't practice it. At least I'm going to say I don't. Very seldom. I do at times, and I do desire for it to start doing that again, because we're going to have to. Times are going to be such that it is that we're going to have to. That last incident that I shared with y'all not too long ago about our sister in that truck situation, had I been on top of things, then I could have bound. I've thought about it many times and thought what a wonderful testimony that would have been to be able to say that I spoke in Yahushua's name for that truck to stop, and it would have stopped. Or if I had called out and said, Father, send messengers to stop this, whatever, had I done that, had I used the power that I have in the name of Yahushua and as a Kodeshim, but I didn't. But we need to start doing that. So knowing that, we just have to start doing, and it's in Matthew, I think 18. I'm going to go to it real quick just to verify for you. Yes, so Matthew 18:18. Verily I say unto you, whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in the Shemayim, and whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in the Shemayim. And if any 2 of you shall agree on earth as touching anything that they shall ask, it shall be done for them of my Father which is in the Shemayim. For where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, Yahushua, there am I in the midst of them. So we have to remember, he told us to pray for things in his name, and whatever we ask for in his name, we would receive it. And I am still struggling with that word pray, but I will conquer that. So we have to understand too that when the Father removes our transgressions, as far as the east is from the west, when we come before him and we acknowledge what we've done or what we didn't do, that doesn't stop the enemy from still seeking to devour us. We have to be like the strong man. We've got to be vigilant. We've got to be watchmen on the wall. We got to know ourselves. We need to know the generational curses and the familiar spirits. We have to know things that we've been forgiven from, things that we've committed, that it could very well come back again. Not necessarily shouldn't, because when we're doing everything we need to do, we're following the protocol, and then it ought not to. Even though he's standing there at bay watching, it won't. Remember Job, when he went before the Father with Job. He does the same thing with us. He did it with Abraham, with Isaac. He did that. He went before the Father, and you can read that in the book of Jasher. And the Father knew Abba knew that Abraham loved him enough that he was going to follow his instructions. And that's how we want that kind of relationship with the Father, that he'll know us too and say, no, I know my daughter, I know my son. So when we have the different promises, no weapon formed against me shall prosper, and all the different scriptures we do like to stand on, we have to understand that with those promises from Father, they're conditional. They're based on what we do. Are we obeying or disobeying? Are we choosing life or choosing death? Are we dwelling in the secret place, or are we playing in the enemy's playground? You know, and that's what we just have to know, are we doing our part? We're in covenant. He does what he does, which he promises to protect and provide and give us peace, and he does all these things for us. But we're also supposed to be commandment keepers, love him with all our heart, soul, mind, everything we have. Nothing should be before him. Be obedient, always do his will, and then he's there. So we have to know that we have to do our part. We have to understand that forgiveness doesn't change anybody but us. It doesn't change the person that we're forgiving. And that's why we don't have to feel like we have to stay in a relationship with that person. They're not changing. I'm not staying in a relationship with you to keep giving you an opportunity to continue to offend. No, it's not going to happen. I did my part. I went to the Father. I asked him to barack me to be able to do what I needed to do. And I did, and my heart is clean, and I'm free. It's over and it's done with. But I don't have to be in friendship with you because you have not changed. And that's the attitude we have to get. And Father knows our heart. And if we're really his, he'll even help us continue to walk in that. So don't feel that you got to prove to anybody that if you really forgave them, that you should be able to be where they're at. No, I don't have to be where they're at. And don't want to be where they're at because they're still stuck where they were at before. Another thing in our parenting, we have to, of course, age appropriately consider this, but tell our children things that would protect them. If they were driving and they had the driver's license, they were driving, we would tell them, oh, when you go down 8th Street, there's a big hole to the right of that, just as you get to the stop sign. So why? Because we want to protect them from falling to the pothole, right? So why not with life? If something's going on, if we know what we've experienced in life, and we know that someone else in our family experienced the same thing, and we have an understanding this is a familiar spirit, this is a generational curse, or whatever it is, but all we know is that it's been going on in our family, then we need to let them know how not to fall the same way. And it could be that you might not even have to tell them the complete story, but you can tell them something that will, or the way you train them up would keep them from making that same mistake. I read in I think it's the book of Jasher, where it shared with the reader that Joseph knew not to sleep with Potiphar's wife because he remembered what his father had taught him. And when I read that, I thought, wow, could it be that Israel, also known as Jacob, that he taught him because of what Reuben had done? And so he wanted Joseph to know that that's not right. But whatever it was, Joseph remembered. So what we teach our children and the life we live is what they're going to live. And another thing too we have to understand is that children are like sponges. They soak up everything that they see and hear. And they will be more likely to do what they see you do than what you tell them to do. Okay? Because there's been people who've told their children not to lie. This is years and years ago, okay? When bill collectors used to come to the house or call, and this family that we knew, the mother was teaching the children to tell the truth, but if they got a call like that, she would tell them I'm not here, And so that brings up a point, when we say, or tell them in the bed, and then we go jump in the bed. Yeah. Okay. So that's the truth. But was it honest? Were you upfront? So what are you teaching the children? So going back to generational curses and familiar spirits, we don't want our children going the same route that we went, the mistakes that we made. We can help them avoid them by letting them know either things that have happened in the family, or at least training them up so that they won't even go that way. They just, and there's a way you can even help them pick their friends by you picking good friends and them having children your children's age. And so if if both families are on the same page, then you have chosen your children's friends without them even knowing you chose them, because everything they do, y'all do it together. You do it with people with like minds, and then that way you help them. Okay, so familiar spirits are not to be taken lightly. Generational curses are not to be taken lightly. Okay. Because what does it say? I'm going to go back to the definitions. Having fair knowledge. They're acquainted. Where is it? Taking undue liberties. Yeah. Sounds about right. I want to share with you a story of a woman that I know. There was several curses in the family, but this one was how the women in the family committed adultery. And so her mother was sharing with her this day about an affair that she had had, and how her own mother had talked her into having the affair. And so she was telling her daughter was an adult, in late 40s, early 50s, probably early 50s. I don't know. But anyways, telling her the story. And she said she would just sit there and hold the man's hand while they were talking. She just liked holding his hand. And the young lady, she didn't tell her mother that she had also had an affair, but that when the affair that she had, she also would like to sit and just, while they were talking, just hold that man's hand. And it just woke something up in her. And so when she got off the phone, she was talking to the father about how could it be. And that's when he shared with her about generational curses and familiar spirits. And he also went on to explain something else to her. As a child, she was sexually assaulted by a man who was married, and which, the way the father explained to her, which then made her an adulteress in the spirit realm. And so all her life, there had been different times when married men would approach her, and she would narrowly escape getting into situations with them. There were a few times she went to the pastors, different churches that she went to, and would get their help, or the pastor's wife to get their help, because the men, that's right, they were going to church, would be approaching her and would not take no for an answer. So she went for years, never committing that sin. And then it finally happened one day. Why? Because she had stopped being the strong man of her house. Things weren't going well in her marriage. They had moved, and she hadn't really got established in a church, and just time went on. And then the company where she was working at, there was a lot of things going on. Long story short, she wasn't vigilant. She had loosened her grip on the one who helps and keeps us straight. And so she did fall. And but when Father told her that she, in the spirit realm, had been an adulteress since a child, it just made everything so clear to her. So these generational curses, familiar spirits, they are lurking. Think about your family. Think about your children. If they're adults and they're making bad decisions, could be that's why. Know how to go to the Father for them. Maybe even go back to them and just help them understand some of the things that's going on to free them. Because the enemy does not play. He comes to steal, kill, and destroy. He'll steal a child a child innocence, and their childhood is never the same. He just does different things. And so we have to say, we can do what we can do for our adult children, because they do make mistakes. And if we were to be truthful and look at the whole scenario, all their lives and the lives that we lived before them, we can find the answer, the key that opened the door to free them. Okay. Ezekiel 16:44 says, as a mother is, so is her daughter. And when you think about it, is what is taught through modeling before our children more spiritual mentoring than it is physically modeling? It is amazing how many parents are surprised and disappointed at the decisions and choices children make without putting it together. But we are going to put it together, and we're going to see how we can help our children. And we're going to take ownership of whatever is ours, and then take it to the Father. He is waiting. He is waiting to help us. I don't know about you, but he does that with me from time to time. It's almost like he's like going through my closet, looking through clothing that I don't need. You ever do that? Go through clothes. I haven't worn this in a long time. But then some of us, we don't want to get rid of it. We say, well, I might consider it later, or it might come back in style. We have these different reasons we don't get rid of things that we need to get rid of. Well, when he brings things to me, that's how I see, okay, he's been in my closet again. Praise Yah, praise Yah. Thank you, Father. Thank you, Father, for showing me, because I need to get this straight. I can't go into, I can't be going and holding on to this stuff. Show me so I can get it right, because he said in John 8, Johannes 8, that his truth will make us free. I want to be free. I want to be made free. Show me my transgression. Show me my shortcomings. Show me my evil, wicked, ugly ways so I can get it straight. And he'll do that with us, and he'll help us clean up our mess. And I tell you, sex is evidently is one of the main things that the enemy does like to use. Because we just cannot. It has probably opened more doors to doom and destruction than what we even know. Another thing that's not taught is how serious a spiritual responsibility it is to bring children into the world. Some people like to blame or give Yah credit for every birth. He is not involved with every birth that takes place. He is not. It's a law. It's like gravity. You throw up a ball, it's going to come down. If a man and woman engages in the activity that could bring forth a child, guess what? It could happen. And so he is not involved in, like, he's the giver of life. Okay, what life? Because the life that he gives is not the life of a newborn baby per se. He's talking about that life that lives in us through Yahushua. But so anyways, so we like to put that on him. But it's serious business to have a child. And I did not know that. I did not know that. How serious it was. It was not taught. It was not taught. It's more than all that we were taught. We have to fight to save our children from the claws of the enemies, but we don't always know that. And so then behaviors start taking place, and the behaviors also turn out to be a will. Then they start willing to be like that, because there's no counteraction. There's no resistance. And so they start acting like that, and they think that's the way they are. And we have got to stop naming children after other people, honoring people by naming our children after them. And I have a son that's named by his first and middle names are names of family members. And I have seen some of those traits in him. And so we have to think about that. What are we doing? What are we doing? And then don't say, you act just like so-and-so. Don't say that. If you see a child acting like so-and-so, and it's not very a good behavior, we need to be taking that person before the Father, standing in the gap for them and getting them released. Don't pronounce that out in the atmosphere and make a declaration of that. Don't do that. We're talking about generational curses and familiar spirits. We don't want to do that. Once our will changes, then change will be brought about. We have to want to change. These familiar spirits can be stopped in their tracks. Remember that there's commercials of the bug spray and how, the bugs would get up. It's raid, right? Or the one with the cold medicine. They would come into that house and throw out their carpet and put their pictures on the wall. And then that person would start taking that medication. And then they would be like, oh, no, we got to get out of here. That's how it can be for us. Look, James says that if we believe in Yah, that's good. But demons believe and tremble. So we got to do a little bit more than just believing, right? Because even they know enough to know who the Most High is. Oh, my goodness. So when we do start to change, we got to expect to have resistance, because the enemy's not going to give up that easily. But still, we walk in it. We confess that we have changed. And for every time that we decree that we're free and we're changing, the change will take place. Because we start saying it, we start believing it. So when we believe it, we start changing our actions. Our choices are changed, and then the enemy doesn't have that ground to stay there and do what he would want to do. So, had that young woman known about how the women in the family were habitual adulterers, and known how to take care of it, it might not would have happened to her, because she went 25 years in a marriage before it did. Yeah. So we had to be aware. So we read in Luke 11:21 about the strong man and how that evil spirit had come back with 7 more evil than him. Mark 3:27 says, no man can enter into a strong man's house and spoil his goods, except he will first bind the strong man, and then he will spoil his house. Verily I say unto you, all sins shall be forgiven unto the sons of men, and blasphemies with whatsoever they shall blaspheme, but he that shall blaspheme against Ruach HaKodesh never has forgiveness, but is in the danger of eternal damnation. We have to teach our children, don't be blaspheming. Be careful what you say. Matthew 12:29 says, or else how can one enter into a strong man's house and spoil his goods, except he first bind the strong man, and then he will spoil his house. Remember Paul, he had scales in his eyes, and once those scales fell, he no longer saw as religion had taught him. He started seeing by the sight of Yahuwah. Proverbs 24:16 says, for a just man shall fall 7 times, and he rises up again, but the wicked shall fall into mischief. Tehillim 37:23, the steps of a good man are ordered by Yahuwah, and he delights in his way. Though he fall, he shall not be utterly cast down, for Yahuwah upholds him with his hand. Philippians 2, beginning with verse 12. Work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. For it is Elohim which works in you both to will and to do of his good pleasure. Ephesians 4:8 says that Yahushua leads those in captivity captive. Okay, so we who are in captivity, he leads us captive, but then we become captive in the things out of him, which really is life. So we want him to lead us out of that captivity. Spiritual transformation, being transformed, is more than a behavior modification program. The behavior will change because we change who we lend ourselves to. Our inner being is free of negative, adverse thinking, which motivates unrighteous, rebellious, offensive behavior against the Most High. So we have to, but it's not like some spiritual it's not like some spiritual transformation. We're just doing, in other words, we're talking the talk, but we're not walking the walk. It's not about that. It has to be on the inside. Our very being changes. Why? Because our will changes. Our will is now his will. Remember what Yahushua said in the garden? Not my will, but your will be done. And at the same time, he told Kepha, Peter, he says, your spirit is willing, but your flesh is weak. We want our flesh to be willing to do the things of the Father. James 4:8 says, draw nigh to Yahuwah, and he will draw nigh to us. He'll come to us. Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. We got to get away from being double-minded. Talking about me too. Can't be double-minded. Sometimes I think I'm not, and then something will happen. And I'm like, oh goodness, I knew better than that. Abba knows those who are his, those who desire life. And so he's there to help us through things. Remember, it says in Philippians, for he works in us both to will and to do of his good pleasure. But we've got to want it. He's not forcing himself on us. James 4:7, submit yourselves unto Yahuwah, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. So I want to share with you Tehillim 51. Have mercy upon me, Elohim, according to your loving kindness, according to the multitude of your tender mercies, blot out my transgressions. Wash me thoroughly from my iniquity and cleanse me from my sins, for I acknowledge my transgressions, and my sin is ever before me. Against you only have I sinned and done this evil in your sight, that you might be justified when you speak and be clear when you judge. Behold, I was shaped in iniquity, and in sin did my mother conceive me. So that's a generational curse stuff. Behold, you desire truth in the inward parts, and in the hidden part you shall make me to know wisdom. Purge me with hyssop, and I shall be clean. Wash me, and I shall be whiter than snow. Make me to hear joy and gladness, that the bones which you have broken may rejoice. Hide your face from my sins, and blot out all my iniquities. Create in me a clean heart, Abba, Father, and renew a right spirit within me. Cast me not away from your presence, and take not your set-apart ruah from me. Restore unto me the joy of your salvation. Uphold me with your free spirit. Then will I teach transgressors your ways, and sinners shall be converted to you. Deliver me from blood guiltiness, Father, for you are my Elohim of my salvation, and my tongue shall sing aloud of your righteousness. O Yahuwah, open my lips, and my mouth shall show forth your praise. For you desire not sacrifice, else would I give it. You delight not in burnt offering. The sacrifice of Elohim are a broken spirit, a broken and contrite heart. O Elohim, you will not despise. So with that, let's work on that. Let's go through the closets of our spiritual closets. Let's, our past mistakes, and let's clean it up. Clean it up. We want to be those that are clothed in that fine white linen. We want to be a part of the bride. We want to be in the New Jerusalem. So with that, praise Yah. Let's be free of these generational curses and the familiar spirits. We got to. That's part of why we're stumbling so much. I love you in Yahuwah. I do desire that we all make it. Until next time, remember, we win in Yahuwah. We win. Ask Yah to blot out our transgressions and to create within us clean hearts and right ruahs. Praise Yah. We win in Yahuwah. Until next time.